because you didn't have your own business to start, right? Like you
Yep.
started off working for people.
Yep.
Like, tell me a little bit about your backstory there and kind of how you
Yeah.
started going the way you're going.
Very organically is how it all came about. I have an engineering degree, and I was brought up in the sort of, probably similar to yourself. I was brought up in the whole thing of go to school, go to university, get a degree, get a job, have a career, etc. And so that's what I did. Got into pharmaceuticals from an engineering standpoint. Did that for about 9 years, doing packaging engineering, process improvements. Started supervising mechanics, things like that. And then that got to a point where, just as it was starting to feel a little stale for a variety of reasons, a good friend of mine, David McEachern, who you've met, he had started his own business running retirement or operating retirement residences in the southern Ontario, southern GTA kind of thing. And he's like, I think we'd worked together through, barbershop and things like that. And he knew what I was all about and what I brought to the table. He's like, I think you would like this. He's like, I think your technical background, but it changes all the time. It's interesting. It's different. It's a huge learning curve. And so I just jumped and joined his company with no knowledge of the business. And over 12 years, evolved into a COO type of role, which of course I didn't realize that until after I left. And it was another friend of mine who I think you met Sharon, who's a branding specialist and a fractional CMO. She's like, you need to look at fractional COO work, and I had no idea what that meant. And so I figured out what the fractional part meant, and then actually did a program through MIT on being a COO. And it was partway through that program, I was like, oh, that's what I was just doing in at least some capacity. And so that kind of just naturally, it all just kind of naturally evolved. It was never a thing of like, I really want to run a business one day. It just kind of happened in that nature. And what I do in addition to the fractional COO work, I think what mirrors my life of, yeah, I'm running a business, but I have two small children. Like I have a family and I have things that I want to do in my life outside of work, and that's important to me. And so a lot of my focus has become helping business leaders achieve that balance, getting out of that overwhelm and overstress and being able to make time for your family, make time for hobbies, or, for some people, if they just want to pour more time into the business, then great, more power to them. But that's kind of how it's evolved. It was just a very natural progression from one stage to the next. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm here now. Great. Let's do it. And but what's been nice about it is, like I said, when I started it, just felt like a good fit. It felt like something that I was ready to do and interested in doing. And the learning curve is something that I've always enjoyed in anything that I've done. And this obviously, as you know, starting a business is a massive and constant learning curve. So yeah,
Yeah.
so that's how it kind of came about.
That's pretty wild because when I first met you, it was through barbershop when I was actually working and doing photography at one of their
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
conventions, right? And
Yeah.
so for me, like, I was always meeting this giant group of guys basically
Yeah.
who love to sing and
Yeah.
and they love to connect and chat and just a gregarious bunch. And so but then the more I started to get to know them, the more I was like, oh, you guys do business, you do this, you do that. It's like its own community, right?
Huge.
Right.
Huge. Yeah, it's you're right. It's like it's a very natural organic networking community.
Hmm.
I started when I was 18 in
Really.
barbershop. Yeah. And it was, the girl I was dating in high school, her uncle was in it. He found out that I was doing theater and stuff and choir at school. He's like, you got to join, you got to join, you got to join. And so I finally did, and immediately my spectrum of friends went from all being one age group to just being a complete spread.
Hmm.
And that kind of, so not only from, being that age, but having, people like I gained mentors out of it, I gained friendships out of it, but also like, oh, I need an electrician. Oh, I'm an electrician. I'll help you out, or, whatever it might be. And because it comes with that, for whatever reason, it's like it's unspoken and it's unwritten, but it's like if you're in this community, you treat people with respect and you treat them with kindness. And so there's an automatic trust factor that's built in there. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, it's helped me from just a learning standpoint, from a life experience standpoint. I think it's taught me a lot about dealing with people in different age levels and different generations, and understanding different belief systems and things like that. Like, I think when, in one of my in my pharmaceutical career, when I started supervising mechanics, and I was like 26 years old, and I'm younger than all the mechanics. Like, some of these guys have been doing this for 30, 40 years. I'm not going to walk in and start telling them how to do their job.
No,
But I didn't have an issue interacting with people of different generations because I'd learned that through barbershop.
that's
And
crazy. Which
yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing as you kind of peel back the layers and you realize the different ways that hobby has affected my life on so many different levels.
Yeah, when the one thing that is striking to me, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is
Sure.
in today's world, especially in leadership, and like a kind of, I want to go about this with a leadership frame.
Sure.
The younger generation of leaders coming up right now, there's been a bit of a break in the chain. Like up to 2020, basically there was like stages people went through in their businesses
Yes.
where they would go in, they would slowly go up the ranks, and then eventually they would go and they would follow on the leadership of the others above them. What happened in
Right.
COVID was we saw this bit of a break that happened where some people who were close to retirement were like, I'm done, I'm out. But
Mm.
then there's new leaders that come up and they haven't had the chance to learn those processes from those existing leaders. And so
Yes.
now we have like almost an entire generation, and I kind of lump myself into this grouping of people who are having to discover leadership,
Yep.
having not seen it practiced, right? So they're kind
Right.
of like having to learn something that they didn't really know what it was, how it was. Like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, it's fun. I'd never considered that perspective, but it makes a lot of sense. And I think the other aspect of it that compounds it is coming out of COVID. I think for a lot of people of any generation, but probably younger generations, maybe more, I could be wrong, is the old way of doing things was no longer interesting,
Hmm.
right? The flexibility, working from home, having autonomy, all those things come into play. So on one hand, I think you're right. I think there was a loss of transferred skills through that. But on the flip side of it, it's new leaders for a new world.
Hmm. Sure.
The challenge is now you've got, these people over here who are in that scenario that you're talking about, and then you got people over here who are remnants of that old way, and now they have to intermix. And that's, and I think in anything, whether it's politics, whether it's anything nowadays, belief systems are challenging to overcome, or to blend,
Mm.
because people get so affronted and so offended when someone challenges their belief system. So that's interesting. I'd never considered that perspective, but it makes complete sense to me.
Yeah, because you had the luxury of having access to the whole gamut of range right off the bat. You got to see the leaders, you got to see
Yes.
the people who weren't leading, who were just like working in the businesses. You got to
Yep.
see all those layers through barbershop, right?
Yes.
And you almost had like a,
Yeah.
I don't want to call it a cheat code, but like it definitely was like, it was a great help because like where else do you get that much range? And like anybody who hasn't done or hasn't seen barbershop or hasn't, first
Yep.
off, go watch a barbershop competition. Ideally, they're fantastic. They're fun to
Yeah.
watch, but like
Absolutely.
the groupings of people involved there are just they're wild. Like
It is.
even in quartets, like so, a quartet is a
Yeah.
four-man group, right? So I
Yep.
mean, you can explain kind of better what a quartet is than I can.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, a quartet is that classic image when someone thinks barbershop, the barbershop quartet. We don't necessarily wear the boaters and pinstripes anymore, but it's four people, one person on each voice part, and that's kind of like, even that is like a microcosm of of this world of relationships and different personalities. Like, anybody who's done quartetting for years knows that it's not just about the voices working together. It is an intimate relationship between four people, and you have to be able to coexist and share certain values. You can differ on other things, but you do it's an interesting social study. And similarly, I was very lucky. My first real quartet that I was in for about 10 years, like we joked at one point that we had four guys that all were in four different decades of their life. One, I was in my 20s, another guy in his 30s, another guy in the 40s, another guy in his 50s, and different stages of life, different family situations, different work situations. And then you go into barbershop choruses, which is same four voice parts, but with lots of people ranging from anywhere from 15 to 20 all the way up to, in Northern Lights at one point we were up around 70, and some of them in the States get even bigger. It's just that many more people, that many more personalities. And similar to business, it's an organization that has to get things done, that has to move forward, that has to deal with interpersonal conflicts and people coming and going and trusting people to do things. And I was very, very lucky to not only get into it, but to be part of groups that were operating at a high level right from the moment I got in. And then I was especially lucky that through David and others, you know, fortunately, I had some background in performing and things like that. And I got brought into leadership that way as well, in coaching performance and designing things and being part of the leadership teams of these high functioning organizations. So yeah, I kind of had that happening before I had it happening in business, which meant when it started to happen in business, I wasn't intimidated by it as
Yeah.
much as I might have been otherwise.
Well, because it's such a strange thing going from I'm going to look after the things that I know how to do to hey, you need to look after this, you need to look at and like the coordinating, right?
Yep.
So, like, talk to me about because I mean, what does it feel like to go from someone who's not really had to coordinate anything except himself to oh shit, no, I have to coordinate a group of people to sing this particular thing, right?
Yeah,
Like, and that kind of leads perfectly into business too, right? Just like,
it does.
how do you coordinate people, whether it be singing or whether it be a business, opportunity to chase? You
Yeah,
have to coordinate, right? So, like, how does that
absolutely.
feel?
Well, I think you kind of nailed it on the head with that phrase of "oh shit." Now, now I'm leading and coordinating people. It's what's been successful for me, both in barbershop and in business, is not painting everybody with the same brush and understanding that I'm not going to talk to you the same way I talk to this person over here or that person over there, because you're different. What you need is different. How you react to things, where you are in your life journey, whatever it might be. And so it's a lot for me anyways. It's a lot of adaptation, a lot of, certainly when I'm talking to the group, there's, you learn over time when you're in a one to many scenario of getting a read of what lands and what doesn't and what works. And some things you plan for and you test them and see if they work or not. Other things you kind of trip over and be like, oh, that was really successful. Okay, file that away. And then it's a lot of learning. It's watching other people, right? Much like in business, I mean, unless you're someone who immediately jumps into running your own business, I had the luxury of coming in, getting brought into the team at a kind of lower level, but watching people who had been doing it for 10, 20, 30 years. The director, the in-house coaches, the coaches that came in from outside that had been working with high-level groups for decades. And so you just become a sponge for all of that. And
Yep.
oh, there you go. Sorry, I lost my picture for a second, so I wasn't thought I lost you. Um, Sorry, give me a second here. Oh, there you are. I don't know why a different window popped up, so I lost you for a second. Um, so you get exposed to that experience, you get exposed to those learnings, you get exposed to them, seeing them make mistakes, seeing them stumble over things.
Yeah.
Um, and then you bring that, and then that, so that helped in business as well. Um, it's, and then there's even also within the leadership team, right? I've been on the leadership team, but not the top person, and managing that relationship while managing trying to get everybody to do the things that I need them to do. And you're not always going to see eye to eye with the person who's ultimately calling the shots. And so that was a learning curve in and of itself of like, whether it's, learning to put your ego in check or learning to just understand and see the bigger picture. There's so many dynamics
Hmm.
that parallel one to the other. And I'm so grateful for the time that I've spent in the organizations that I've been a part of, in the choruses that I've been a part of, the quartets I've been a part of, but also being asked to go and coach and to go and teach. And I was a part of the judging community. I'm a big barbershop nerd.
That's okay. No worries.
But it's all served me in so many different ways. And you have moments that you fail or drop the ball, or you walk out of a coaching session or a short little teaching moment or whatever, and you sit there and go, that didn't go well. Okay, how do I avoid that? Why did that happen? Um, but it's been such a value to be part of a community that just has a whole lot of wisdom and experience in it from so many different walks of life,
Mm.
and be able to just absorb that whenever I can and take that and learn from it. And it's truly like it's I'm sure a lot of people kind of throw this stuff around, but it was truly a life-changing decision for me when I decided to join barbershop. I just had no idea to what degree when I decided to go out to that first rehearsal one night. Like,
Yeah.
the arc of my life, the trajectory of my life changed dramatically from that point forward.
Yeah. Which is wild because I mean, it's just a singular choice, right? Like you could have
Yeah.
chosen not to, right? And
Yep.
like you already had some theater background, but the singing, was kind of newer to you, and the whole concept sounded new to you as well, right? So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's
Like,
like,
I'd been singing, but like, and the thing that they always say in barbershop is, especially if you do have singing experience, the first time you experience being in that harmony
mm,
and hearing how it sounds, it's true. It's like it's infectious and it hooks you. But I honestly think, looking back, what hooked me possibly more so was that community aspect.
yeah,
Like, I was struck so much by how kind everybody was and how helpful and supportive everybody was. And then going to an international competition where it's like a world championship is at stake, but the general vibe of everyone is, I hope everybody does well,
hmm,
including you, including me. Like, let's all just get better and have a really good time. And it was great. It was just such a cool thing to experience. So yeah, I have so much gratitude for that.
well, and it's so interesting because I love how the greatest things in life are often hidden behind layers of uncomfort or risk
Yeah.
or kind of just like just pure. I don't know if I want to do that. Like, is
Yeah.
have you found that's been the case for you, especially as you going more and more into leadership? Are you getting dragged kicking and screaming into it, or are you a willing participant?
I think I've had enough years of taking risks through barbershop, but also like theater. I have a director in my theater hobby that I've worked with for years, where I learned over time that when there was discomfort, when there was, oh, I feel like I'm going to be making a complete ass of myself, those were the moments that ended up being the most special for whatever reason. And so, but with all of that experience, yeah, I don't know that I go kicking and screaming into anything now. There's definitely fear in new experience. There's definitely, I don't like, even something as simple as like when I started my own business, and it's like, okay, well, now I have to do sales, and I'm not a sales guy. And I engaged with someone who was kind of a coach and was doing a program for that. I'm like, great, I'm going to do it. And I started hearing about what I was going to have to do, and immediately, like, knee jerk reaction was like, this isn't me. This isn't what. But then it was like, no, this is a path forward.
Hmm.
This will lead to something. And so let's go. Let's give it its fair shot and jump in with both feet. So I would say the fear and the trepidation at times doesn't go away, but it's more like it triggers my brain to go, okay, then that means this is worth doing.
Mm. There's
If
the
that makes
value, yeah. There's like value, or there's like a prize worth going for.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sort of similar to, like, as a performer and an actor, if when I'm in a state where I feel like I'm kind of being at my most vulnerable or my most real, it feels risky. It feels like a little like you're teetering on the edge. And after you do that enough times, if you don't have that feeling, it's not as satisfying, right? So it's you learn to want that risky feeling.
Yeah, it's almost like an
You learn to
adrenaline
like it.
junkie.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it's I would imagine it's fair. I'm because I don't consider myself an adrenaline junkie, but I imagine it's a
Yeah.
similar kind of vibe, right? It's like I know that when I'm here, good things are happening. Despite that my inner security system, there's alarms going off and things like that. But yeah, I feel like that's where okay, I'm treading new ground. I'm breaking new ground here, and this
Yeah.
is exciting, and this is where I want to live.
Do you find yourself often kind of using that kind of mantra to kind of soothe yourself in the kind of like the process of doing something risky or not
Yeah.
even risky, but like just kind of new and,
Yes.
exciting?
Yes. Yeah. There's definitely times of like this is going to be painful, but let's go and let's analyze it and let's not shy away from it when it's not working. And running a business, there are times when you're like, this isn't working or this aspect of it isn't working. And there's a natural tendency to just focus on what is working, right?
Mm.
There's a natural tendency like, this is where I'm comfortable. This is where I feel good. This is where I get, I have all the happy thoughts. Okay, but that's where I got to focus my efforts,
Yeah.
right? So I think it helps. It definitely helps in that sense of, okay, grin and bear it. This is going to hurt a little bit, but
Yeah.
but this is the work that's got to be done.
I think too, there's some layers to that too, because there gets to a point where I've done enough in a business to know where I can excel and where I'm not excelling. And then the places that I'm
Sure.
good at, I'll double down on. And then the places I'm not as good at, I'll bring in people to supplement that kind of
Yeah,
like weakness in the system to make sure that
absolutely.
the whole system works well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So I think there's things that you can learn in order to continue to do them and to take ownership of them, and then there's things that I like to learn, knowing that eventually I'm going to hand that off,
Yeah.
but I want to know it and I want to wrap my head around it and have some experience doing it before I hand it off to somebody else, so that way I can manage it better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's funny you say manage because that's the one part of, as I'm growing my own like podcast and agency, the one of the part that's really complicated for me is learning how to let go of being an operator. So like
Hmm.
I'm really good at like putting together creative or creating imagery, and so stepping back from that and focusing more on those larger scale things can be really really tricky, especially
Huge.
with, I don't have a lifeline to look up to or don't have a kind of mentor that I'm kind of like, okay, how do I do this, or why should I do this, or what should I be doing, right? Like there's so
Yeah,
many questions. I
sure.
feel that a good mentor will remove so many questions, right?
Absolutely.
And that just
Yeah,
speeds it along.
for sure, because they've been down those roads. They've gone over those speed bumps. They've crashed and burned in different areas, and you know, David was great in that respect as a mentor for me, because a lot of the time there were times where he's like, I don't think this is going to work, but I'm going to let you go ahead and try it because either you're going to make it work and that'll be great, or it won't, and it's no real harm if you don't, and you'll learn from it and that'll be good for you. Um, so yeah, having the mentor there is a big thing, because yeah, letting go, yeah, it can be so hard, and because it feels so often like it's just easier if I do it myself.
Yeah.
But if you keep that and now multiply that times 100 micro tasks, well, that accumulates, and now it's like what people call death by a thousand paper cuts, right? You're not letting go of a big chunk of things because you don't want to get into the minutia of it. So yeah, there's a way, right? It's taking it one step at a time, understanding, okay, what are the key important things that I need to monitor here? Okay, now I'm going to take this one thing, send it off, watch it, make sure it's working. Great. Now I can let that go. Keep one eye on, I like to think of it as, you've got certain red flags that you look out for. If I don't see these red flags, things are running smoothly. I don't have to check deeper.
Hmm.
Here, okay, that's now a problem. So now I need to do a deeper dive, because if that's a problem, then that probably means some other things are going on as well. So, but it's hard. It takes time, and it takes iterations and at bats to go through that process of handing it off to someone and teaching them. And then you've got never mind the whole fact that you've got another person who thinks differently than you, who learns differently from you, who has different values and needs than you do. And they're not going to buy into your business the same way that you buy into your business. So yeah, there's like 1,000 factors that come into play that make it complex. So yeah.
How do you deal with the kind of, because I mean, it can sometimes feel like more of a burden sometimes to have people doing those things. It's like, how
hmm
do you get past that point where you're like, this is, this is not the burden, I'm giving this burden off.
Yeah, I mean, some of it is again, it's just trial and error, but I think sometimes it's more time up front with the planning and say hiring than it is about the delegation. So, you're going to hire somebody. What's important to you? What are the most important things to you? Well, you want to make sure that if you're hiring someone, that that's important to them as well, right? Whether it's, I want them to be really meticulous, or I want them to be really fast, or I want them to push back on me and tell me I'm doing something wrong and give me that kind of feedback. Or I want a yes person, because for certain things you do just want a yes person, right? So you have to kind of figure out where your needs are from an employee standpoint as a first level, and then as what are you hiring them for, and what are the kind of goes and no goes, right? Because I think you have to leave room for some things for the person to give their own interpretation, their own spin on it, or to have their own way of doing it. But there's gonna be certain things where it's like, no, no, this part's non-negotiable, right? Even if it's something as simple as like, I need you available from this time to this time on these days every week, no questions asked, right? That kind of thing. Whereas some people might show up late or they prefer flexible hours. That's one of 100 examples. So yeah, I think it's more time early to have it work better down the road. The challenge is a lot of the time, by the time people get to a point of bringing someone on, they're scrambling and they're floundering, and they so desperately want to get something offloaded that it's like, okay, get them in and here, do this.
Hmm.
And then they're surprised when it all blows up in their face.
Yeah. And that's is something that I'm learning as I'm going to is like understanding what actually is going to move the needle, what's going to kind of help the project move forwards and,
Yep.
build out those layers.
Yeah,
Right? Like
for sure.
that's, yeah, that's the problem. And that's what also holds me back sometimes when I start looking into hiring people or something like that. Is
Yeah.
like, you know, what's the what's the weight that I'm actually going to lose here, right? Is it just quicker just for me to do it myself, right?
Right.
So I think like that's where the operator mindset starts to fall apart a little bit, is because the operator mindset has developed into a place of extreme resilience and capability,
hmm
right? So being able to step away from that is frankly tough, right?
Yep.
For any person or any kind of artist or any kind of business person. So talk to me about how you went from, I'm working in this and I need to step out and start something new and start something fresh. Like, what were your kind of thoughts and feelings as you're going through that?
Um, so like I said, it kind of evolved organically. So I actually have two businesses that I run. The other one's a senior focused home renovation company. And that one came about, so I'm not going to say randomly, but I had a guy doing renovations on my house. I really liked what he was doing. We got to talking one day about what I did for work. He was like, "Oh, I've really wanted to get into the senior market." Next thing you know, we're running a business together. It was just a natural kind of fit and flow. Um, but certainly with my own, I think there was a couple things. What excited me about it was whether it was in barbershop or in business, I'd spent a lot of time as like a number two type of, or just like second tier, where I have a lot of responsibility, but there's ultimately someone above who's making the decisions. And I'm comfortable in that role, but it was like after 25 years of it, it was exciting and terrifying to now be like the last stop, right? In some respects, it's like, okay, if I want to pivot on this, I can pivot on this. Or if I want to make a decision on this, I can just make it and I can go. But I'm where the buck stops here. So, this is where years, like when I was when I was doing the retirement home gig, fortunately, David was great. He treated me like a partner in that he always kept me in the loop on the decisions he was making, on the conversations he was having, on the risks that he saw in different things. So that kind of gave me a little bit of a primer on the bigger picture of like, yeah, there's legal aspects that you may not think of, or monetary aspects, or even from a customer is like, don't, it's great to have a customer who gives you a whole lot of business, but what happens if that's your only customer and they dry up one day? So that's probably been the biggest shift of balancing, okay, where can I take advantage of my decisiveness and my desire and my want to go and get things done versus, okay, now I do have to think more, I have to be a little bit more risk averse in terms of, because now it's like, it's me and it's my family that will suffer if something goes sideways. I can't just be like, I just work here. It doesn't work that way
I
anymore.
mean, you can, but it doesn't end well.
No, it
How do
doesn't.
you broach risk with the kids? Because I mean, your kids are still young, so do you encourage them to take risks, like
Yeah.
knowing what you've gone through?
Yeah, I think I will. I mean, certainly they're not in a like life decision risk mode. But I definitely think about it a lot. Um, even just in terms of like, I'm gonna do this. Great, try it. Like even if it's just a game that Liam wants to play or a thing that he wants to do, or who knows. Like I'm just letting his imagination kind of go as long as it doesn't, take him off a top bunk and face plant on the floor.
That
Like
happens.
it did to my daughter.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, it's funny. I think about that a lot now since I've become a dad of not so much thinking about a little bit of how do I handle things now, but definitely as they get older and they start having decisions about what do they want to do and their personality and how they interact with the world
Mm.
is something that I think about a lot. And not just that, but what is my role to either be there to support or just step out of the way,
Yeah.
right? Kind of like how David did with me. It's like, this isn't going to go well, but you need to fall in your face and experience this firsthand
Yeah.
because that's the best way to learn.
Well, I think that that's honestly like people often look at failure like it's a failure, right? When really it just comes down to you tried it, it didn't work, but the learning you got from it will
Yeah,
make you better. Now, if you keep failing on the same thing, doing the same thing over and over again, then there's an
right.
issue with your learning, right?
Yep.
And you need to adjust that. But ultimately, by letting people have like micro failures or like,
Yep.
take mini risks, I think that's just going to broaden everybody's horizon, like whether it be for
Yes.
artists, whether it be for business, just as people in general, right? Like without you taking your risks when you were younger, you wouldn't have got into the communities that you have, which didn't lead to all
Yeah.
these things. It's like this butterfly effect that comes from having, one small risk or, one
Yeah.
chance or one thing.
Yeah.
And it never, and this is the part that really, this is the part that enamors me with it all, is it's never the thing that you expect it to be. It's always something else. So you go
Okay.
into something and go, I'm going to do this, and it's going to be like this, and it's completely different by the time you're done. But
Yeah.
often it can be so much more, so much better, so much more interesting or different, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
letting kids like take those mini risks and, experience life in its full and then decide,
Yeah.
oh, that's not for me or this is for me. And like that's the beauty of like, A, I mean, being a parent's awesome, watching that happen, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And B, it's like it's the way that they're gonna learn, truly learn, and not just be like, oh, I read it at school, I read it in a book, I watched on a movie, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and being a parent is a lesson in failure in and of itself, right?
do you
I'm,
remember the first day that you took back your firstborn back home?
oh
And you're
yeah.
like left alone in your own house, and you're like, I'm not supervised. I don't know what I'm doing. What the
Yeah.
hell? Where's the adult in the room? Like that was my first thing. I was like, where's the adult? Like, how are we allowed to do this? Like,
Yeah.
can we
That was
go
the feeling
back
in
to
the
the hospital?
yeah, that was the feeling in the car.
Yeah.
Like we're looking back in the back seats, like there's a baby back there
Yeah.
that people have trusted us with. Now, what was funny this I don't know if you experienced this the second time around. When the second one came along, it was like we got home and it was like, oh yeah, we don't really have to do anything with you.
hmm Yeah. The first
It
one
was
was
like,
like
oh,
everything was such a mountain.
Oh yeah.
right? Everything was such a man. Like, how do we do this? How do we do this? Now, I had the weird side benefit of, at the time, I was a baby photographer. So I had a ton of like working with kids, working with babies.
Oh,
So
nice.
I think the average age of the kids that we were photographing was like 4 or 5 months.
Oh,
So
perfect.
I was doing 8 of them a day. So I
Oh,
was used
wow.
to holding babies. So
Yep.
my wife would freak out because she'd be like, "Would you stop holding our kid like a football?" So I'd just like, "Whoop," and off I'd go,
Fine.
right? And
No, it's
it's like
fine.
they're fine, they're light. I'll catch them, don't worry. And it's like, but
Yeah.
she was so terrified of like how cavalier I was with her child, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
and it's honestly the first one was like just this fear that we were going to do everything wrong.
Oh yeah.
The second one, however, was the complete opposite. It
Yeah.
was like, baby was out, we're swaddled, and then we're just like, okay, so when can we go back home? Like, we're good
Yeah.
now. Wait, like
Yeah.
it's cold in this place, and the
Yeah.
food kind of sucks, and
Yep.
it's
Yeah.
kind of boring here. So if we can get back, and then the at the time she would have been 3 years old, I think the oldest would have been.
Okay. Yeah,
So
yeah,
like
yeah.
she needs something to do at this point. So like sitting in
Oh
the
yeah.
corner watching the baby is only gonna last for another 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a completely different experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's and again, going back to that failure idea, it's like I think the second time around there's also a sense of, yeah, I'm gonna screw this up in different ways, but I'll be okay.
Yeah.
I'll bounce back from it. She's gonna be resilient. We'll move forward. Um, but yeah, the experience, yeah, I didn't have the degree of experience that you were talking about, but definitely having, I have a whole bunch of nieces, nephews, and a niece,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I wasn't a whole lot of like being around a baby. It's just being comfortable around a baby,
Yeah.
right? And so, but yeah, it's such a learning ground on falling flat on your face with things and trying things and screwing it up, and I think this is again where it comes back, tying back to the arts background as well. Like, so much about performing is about learning to be vulnerable, and not necessarily, oh, you need to learn to cry on demand. No, it's not that. It's learning to be able to step in front of people and be completely at ease with whatever you're presenting and letting them take it however they will. It's
Yeah.
like, this is what I have to offer. If you like it, great. If you don't, that's fine. I'm just this is what I've got.
Hmm.
And I think that's served me so much more. It's served me as a parent. It's served me in business. As I've started to like try and, I'm building up a social media presence for my business, and it's like, you know, I do YouTube videos, and I'll come up with a topic, and I'll have like a roadmap of how I want to talk, but I'll just turn the camera on, and I'll just talk,
Yep.
and I won't do a ton of editing. It's just because that's what I want to come through more than anything. It's just, this is me.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it. This is what I have to offer, and everything in my life has kind of, everything I've done has supported the idea that the more I can take on that attitude, the more success I'll have as a result.
Yeah. And it's kind of like this weird thing because being authentic is super risky yet super easy to do, all in the same hand, right?
Yeah,
Because it's like there's got to be a layer of I just don't give a shit, which
100%.
is probably the hardest layer. Like
Yeah,
so I mean, me, I was very comfortable behind the camera.
sure.
And over the past 6 months, I've learned to kind of step in front of the camera and do this kind of thing.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And
Which is awesome.
thank you. And it was like, it's terrifying to
Yeah,
start. And there's still moments where I walk out and I'm just like, why am I here? Like, who said that this was a good idea? Put me behind the camera. I'm much better. My producer's waving because he's like, yep, one of us had to
yeah,
do it and you're it. Right. But I mean, kudos to him for kind of pushing me through it because the layers you go through when you start actually becoming authentic and being true to yourself, because you have to go through these layers of tiredness first, like very similar to being a parent, where it's like you get to the point where you just get worn down
yep,
and then I've started to refer to it as like it's like a series of ego deaths being on camera.
yeah. I like that.
That's all it
I
is.
like that.
Where you get to the
Yep.
point where this is me. There's no more masks left. This is who I am. You
Nope.
know, like you said, take me or leave me. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I hope we can find some common ground and have
Yeah.
a great conversation. And like,
I've made a fool of myself in enough spaces and enough occasions. I've felt enough shame.
yeah.
This is what you get now.
Well, and shame is such a powerful emotion,
Oh, huge. Huge.
right? Talk
It,
to
it,
me
it,
as a artist, especially. Like, how does that affect you?
it's a mountain to overcome. And I don't think you can avoid it, but I think you can recognize it and step into it.
Hmm.
Or not step into it, but accept it, right? I think as anyone does, there I have moments from my life over the years where if I think of a certain memory, like I will feel that in my gut, that that of like I can't believe I did that, said that, experienced that, whatever it may be. But I think over time it's like, yeah, well, I did, and that was an experience, and I learned from it, and so now it's kind of a moment of self-talk before taking a leap for something of like, this might be terrible. Okay, what's I think it was actually, of all people, I was listening to an interview with Jamie Foxx, and he said when he was brought up, his dad used to say to him something along the lines of, what's after the fear? What comes after the fear? As
Hmm.
in, what's gonna happen? What's the worst that could happen? And I mean, obviously, in certain situations, the worst that could happen is really, really bad. But I think 99 times out of 100, it's a bruised ego. And that's, when you start to let go of your ego and accept the fact that sometimes to some people at all times, you're not going to be their cup of tea, or you might look foolish, or you might, step in it here and there. But as long as you stay true to your values, it's not going to be so bad. Then you can have those moments and be like, okay, I'm accepting of the fact that this might result in some egg in my face, and that's okay.
I like the looking past it because, like, I mean, as an Englishman, one of my favorite phrases is, what's the worst that can happen, right? But we usually mean it in a very dire way. Like, you're going to fuck it up anyways. So, what's the worst that can happen? Like,
Yeah.
go for it. Go for it. Let's see how bad you can make it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, how do you rack up those kind of situations? But being able to see past it and to look, right. And to actually go, this is worth it. This is,
Yeah.
it's worth the pain of going through. It's the price of admission.
Right. Yeah. I was like, was it or I think, was it a Gretzky line of, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take,
Yep.
right? It's like, put yourself out there, try things, do things. You learn, you grow, some great stuff might come of it. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
And it makes it interesting, it makes it exciting, and it just makes it the path just becomes much more fun. I mean, yeah, it's scary at times, and it's nerve-wracking at times and whatever, but at the same time, like, it served me in so many levels, even just in terms of how I manage my day to day, right? You get it as a business owner. You're gonna have moments of overwhelm no matter how well organized or how well under control you are. It happens to the best of us. I know that when I'm in it and I'm feeling it, or I'm struggling with something, that I can just speak very openly with my wife about what I'm dealing with. Or if there's something that I'm scared about, or something that I feel like I screwed up, or whatever it might be, I can just be open and honest about it, because I know she's not going to judge me for it, and I'm comfortable just sharing that with her to get it off my chest. So, yeah, yeah, but you're right. The shame is real. Shame is a powerful thing.
Yeah. It's the one part of like, I don't want to say I'm a performer, but like the one part of performance that is the hardest part to break through. Like you can break through fear, you can break through the kind of intrepidation, but there's like that certain amount of, um, I think it's almost like self acceptance
Hmm.
in so many ways, and it's like that
Hmm.
kind of like closing in on your true self, if you may.
Hmm.
Um, that makes it a very difficult because I find often that we don't really know ourselves until we start putting ourselves out in these situations. It's like, oh, actually, I'm
Absolutely.
more capable than I thought, or
Yep.
and I look back at some of the early footage now, and I'm just like, man, I was allowed to keep going. Like, it's like they said, okay, let's do this some more,
Yep.
and it's
Yep.
and I find that over each conversation becomes easier to be in front of the camera or to step
Sure.
out and to be a bit more kind of like you said, vulnerable and out there on the stage.
Yeah.
I think a lot of young artists look to the social feeds for inspiration and like look through that stuff. But the
Mm.
problem is they're seeing a strongly curated version of themselves or the
Yeah.
people that are around them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think right now we're seeing a resurgence of people willing to show what it's like when it's good and when it's bad. Like
Yeah.
to show all of those layers and not just that
Yeah.
kind of like highlight reel of a life.
No, yeah, I'm so cynical when it comes to stuff like that, where it's like the more people are showing how great their life is, that I'm just like, oh, you must be so sad. And I'm sure
It's
it's
like,
not the case with
is that
everybody, but
because you think they're like hiding stuff behind it, or
yeah, it's like, especially when it's like, they can't take a picture without striking a certain pose or having certain filters on, and I don't know, it's just not interesting to me.
yeah,
It's just not it doesn't like I get I used to see it differently, but as cliche as it sounds, as you get older your perspective shifts, and now that stuff just bores me, right? I'm much more interested in just talking, like watching things where people are just kind of talking about what they're going through, and being like, I love these videos. Like, I love the influencers that are parents and they're just talking very plainly about how badly they screwed something up. Like, it's like that stuff, because you live it, you know it. Like, it's like, yep, been there, right? It's so yeah, it's interesting. I mean, and it's ego, right? It's learning to understand we all have ego. It's just a question of how much does it control our actions,
mm,
right? How fragile is it that it dictates the way we run our life? And
yeah,
I don't think it's absent in anyone, but you need to be aware of it and figure it out. And yeah, it has its place and you can use it for good. Um, but if you're not careful, like I always joke with people that's like, in again, going back to the performance thing, but it applies anywhere. You're performing something and you screw up, right? You make a mistake on a big stage. And like, I've had groups that have been on stages with 9,000 people and a world championship is on the line. And we're constantly preaching, if you screw up, let it go and just keep looking forward. But on the flip side, I also now say to people, if you do something and if you feel like you nailed it, let it go and move forward. Like, you can't dwell on the stuff you screw up. You can't dwell on the stuff that you knocked out of the park when you're still going on to the next thing. Take a moment later and be happy about it. That's great. But like, you stop to pat yourself on the back and next thing you know, you trip and fall flat on your face. It's, you know, I I always I always kind of I'm amazed at that whole idea of like everything about being vulnerable and being, you know, in control of your ego, or however you want to phrase it, everything is working against you. Everything. It's like your inner security system is telling you to put up walls, and then you do something and you screw it up. Well, now you're not going to want to be vulnerable, or you do something and it goes really well, and now your ego shows up and is like, look how awesome you are. Like, it's just like the whole world's against you, right? And all you can do is just keep reminding yourself of like, I'm just me. This is all I have. This is all I can do, and make the best decisions you can.
I love that so much,
Yeah.
dude. If if this journey from like singing to business to parenthood isn't enough, if people want to get to know more about you and the things
Yeah.
that you do, like tell them about how to reach you best or how best
Sure.
to connect with you and what do you do as well.
Absolutely. So Northland Fractional Incorporated is my business. You can find it on LinkedIn. either look for my profile or my company page. You can message me there. You can see some social media stuff. I also have a Northland Fractional YouTube channel that's kind of just still in its infancy and starting to populate that. But yeah, so or my website, northlandfractional.com, send me a message or book a call with me there. And, I love working with business owners who are making money, but are struggling with being overwhelmed, being overstressed, and just trying to get it all under control. So, I love to have chats with people, start with a no obligation call just to see if I can help and take it from there. But yeah.
Amazing. Patrick, thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. It's really glad you asked. Good to talk to you, Ash.
Cheers, man.